He thought he understood everything about her. From the moment the human soldier had first met the alien woman, he believed he knew what kind of life he was stepping into. She had seemed gentle, her voice calm, her movements graceful. She had saved his life once, back during the border conflicts, when a plasma storm nearly tore his patrol apart. She was the one who pulled him from the wreckage, her alien hands surprisingly steady as she carried him through fire and smoke. In that moment, he thought he saw something human in her eyes, something he could trust. That trust had grown into love, and then into marriage. To him, she was more than a warrior from another world. She was a chance to leave behind battles and begin a new life. But he was wrong. Because on the very first night of their marriage, when the colony ship drifted in silence between stars, she turned to him with a request so strange, so unsettling, that it cracked everything he thought he knew about her. The human soldier was not an easy man to surprise. He had lived through chaos, he had seen death, he had fought enemies who had no mercy. But when his new wife looked at him, her alien eyes glowing faintly in the dark cabin, and said she wanted him to teach her younger sister about males, he could only sit in silence. The words did not make sense at first. He replayed them in his head, thinking maybe it was a translation mistake. But no, her voice was steady, her meaning clear. She wanted him, her husband, to take her sister under his care and show her what it meant to understand men. The room felt colder. He stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to tell him it was some strange cultural joke. But she did not smile. Her expression was calm, serious, as if she had just asked him to pass the water across the table. Only then did he realize that this was not a trick. This was something important, something that her people had carried as tradition or secret. And it left him uneasy, because he could not imagine why a wife would ask such a thing on the very night of her marriage. He tried to speak, to ask why, but she raised a hand gently to stop him. "It is not what you fear," she whispered. "It is something greater than desire. My sister, she must learn. And you are the one who must teach her." The soldier leaned back in his chair, heart racing. He thought of her sister, someone he had never met, someone waiting on another ship to join them at the colony. Why would she need to learn about males? And why him? Questions twisted in his mind, questions he did not dare say out loud. Because in her eyes, he saw not mischief, not playfulness, but something heavy. Duty, fear, and maybe even desperation. Outside, the stars glimmered in endless silence, but inside that small cabin, the air grew tense. He realized he did not know his wife at all. He thought he had married a woman, but perhaps he had married a mystery, an entire alien culture hidden behind one soft voice. He remembered the whispers among human soldiers. Her species was beautiful, yes, but dangerous. They were known for secrets, for strange customs, for alliances that came at a cost. And now, with her strange request echoing in his mind, he wondered if he had walked willingly into a trap he could not escape. She touched his hand, her skin cool against his. "You will understand in time," she said quietly. "But you must not refuse me. For my people, for my family, this is the way." The soldier felt a chill run down his spine. He was a man trained for battlefields, not for strange alien customs. Yet here he was, bound by marriage, bound by loyalty, staring into the eyes of a wife who spoke as if the survival of her world rested on his choice. The request was simple in words, but heavy in meaning. And the worst part was, he did not know what would happen if he said no. That night, he did not sleep. He sat awake, watching the faint glow of the ship's controls, thinking about what awaited him. Tomorrow, the transport from her world would arrive, bringing her younger sister into his life. Tomorrow, he would be tested in a way no weapon could prepare him for. He had fought enemies, he had faced storms, but he had never faced something like this. The quiet, sharp edge of cultural duty that cut deeper than any blade. As the hours passed, a single thought grew in his mind. He had married her out of love, out of trust, but love was not enough. He would have to understand her people, their secrets, and the reason behind her strange demand. Because one truth echoed louder than the silence of space. He thought he knew his alien wife, but he was only beginning to discover who she really was. And deep down, he feared the truth would change everything. The ship's docking alarm echoed softly through the corridors, and the human soldier felt his chest tighten. He had been waiting for this moment since the strange conversation with his new wife, but no amount of thinking had prepared him for the reality. The younger sister was coming. The one his wife wanted him to teach. He stood by the observation window as the transport slid into the docking bay, a sleek silver craft humming with alien energy. His wife stood at his side, her expression unreadable, her posture proud. She looked calm, almost too calm, as if this was not unusual, as if what she had asked him to do was as normal as breathing. He wanted to speak, to ask her again what this meant, but the words never came. The silence between them was heavier than steel. Then the doors opened, and she appeared. The sister was younger, smaller, her features sharper than his wife's. Her alien eyes glowed faintly, like twin embers in the dim light. She carried no bags, no tools, nothing but herself. She moved with a quiet grace, but her steps were cautious, as if she were stepping into unknown territory. When her gaze landed on him, the human soldier, she froze. For a moment, her expression flickered between fear and curiosity, like a wild creature caught between fleeing and approaching. His wife broke the silence first. "This is him," she said softly, her voice calm but firm. "My husband. The one I told you about." The sister bowed her head, a gesture that seemed both respectful and reluctant. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was quiet and careful. "So this is the male who will guide me." The soldier felt his heart skip. The words sounded rehearsed, like she was repeating something taught to her since childhood. He looked at his wife, searching for explanation, but she simply nodded. "You see," she whispered, "she understands already. But she does not know. That is where you come in." The soldier's throat was dry. He wanted to argue, to refuse, but there was something in the younger sister's eyes that stopped him. Behind the glow, behind the calm, he saw fear. Real fear. She wasn't here by choice. She wasn't here to play out some strange cultural ritual. She was here because she had to be, and she was terrified. Later, in the small cabin, the three of them sat together. The sister sat on the edge of the chair, her hands folded tightly, her shoulders tense. His wife sat between them, her voice guiding, explaining in words that left him more confused than before. "In our world," she said, "males are rare. They are treasured but kept apart. Our females grow strong, they grow wise, but they do not grow close to males. That closeness, that bond, is something we do not understand. And without it, we are incomplete." She turned her eyes to him, steady and sharp. "That is why I chose you. That is why she must learn. She must learn from a human, because humans are not afraid of bonds. You connect, even in war. You risk, even when it destroys you. That is the lesson she must carry." The soldier leaned back, uneasy. So this was not about desire, not about flesh. It was about something deeper. Something his wife's people feared. Connection. Trust. The simple, dangerous act of letting another soul too close. And he was supposed to teach it. The sister's voice trembled as she spoke for the first time since arriving. "And if I fail," she whispered. Her sister's gaze hardened. "Then you will not survive among humans. And you will never be ready for the trials to come." The soldier's blood ran cold at those words. Trials. What trials? He wanted to ask, but the weight in the room stopped him. He realized this was bigger than marriage, bigger than culture. Something was coming, something that required these alien women to understand humans in a way they never had before. And somehow, he was at the center of it. As the hours passed, he tried to break the silence with small questions. Where she came from, what she believed, what she feared, but the sister only gave short answers. Her voice shook when she spoke, her eyes darted to the floor. He could tell she was not ready to trust him. And yet, beneath the fear, there was something else. A quiet spark. A hunger to know, even if it scared her. When the night grew long and the lights dimmed, He lay awake once again, his mind racing. He had thought marrying an alien would be the hardest choice of his life. He had thought crossing the boundary between species would be enough. But now he understood, he was only at the beginning of something far larger. His wife had brought him into a secret he did not understand, and her sister was the proof of it. The question burned in his chest. Why him? Out of all the humans, out of all the choices, why had his wife chosen him to bear this strange responsibility? What did she see in him that even he did not see in himself? As sleep finally pulled at his eyes, one thought haunted him. The galaxy was far more dangerous than he realized, and his wife's strange request was not just about family or custom. It was preparation. For what, he did not yet know. But soon, he would. The morning came with a silence that felt too heavy for comfort. The soldier rose from his bunk and found his wife already awake, standing near the window with her sister. The younger one looked uneasy, her hands folded tightly against her chest as if she were preparing for battle. His wife turned when she noticed him and gave a small nod. "It is time," she said simply, as though those words explained everything. He sat down across from them, trying to calm the storm in his own chest. He had no idea how to begin this so-called lesson. How do you teach someone to feel trust? How do you explain what it means to let another being close when every part of her had been trained to fear it? He looked at the sister, who avoided his eyes, and decided to start small. "Humans," he said slowly, "are not afraid to show weakness. We trust by allowing someone to see us when we are not strong. That is what makes the bond real." He unclasped the armor plate from his chest, letting it fall to the side with a dull thud. The gesture was simple, but symbolic. He was showing them his vulnerability. No protection. No shield. Just himself. The sister's eyes flickered with confusion, then fear. "You remove your guard?" she asked softly. "You expose yourself like this? Even to an enemy?" He nodded. "Sometimes, yes. Because sometimes the only way to survive is to believe the other person won't strike you. That belief, that trust, is more powerful than armor." His wife's gaze sharpened. She said nothing, but he could feel her studying him, measuring his words, testing their weight. The sister hesitated. Her hands trembled as she reached forward, almost against her will, and touched the place where his armor had been. Her fingers brushed against his shirt, her eyes wide, as if touching him without the barrier was something forbidden. When her hand pulled back, she whispered, "It feels wrong. And yet, not." The soldier leaned forward. "That feeling, that is the beginning of trust. It is not easy. It feels dangerous. But that danger is what makes it real." For a moment, the room was still. Then, without warning, the younger sister's expression hardened. Her eyes glowed brighter, and her voice grew sharper. "What if you are wrong? What if the one you trust decides you are weak and destroys you? Would you still call that strength?" Her words cut deep, and he could feel the raw edge of fear behind them. He understood then, she was not asking out of curiosity. She was asking because she had lived her whole life under rules that taught her closeness was weakness, that trust meant death. "I would still call it strength," he answered quietly. "Because even if I fall knowing I lived without fear." The sister froze at his answer. For the first time, her eyes met his fully. There was something there, a crack in the wall she had built around herself. Something fragile and uncertain, but alive. The moment stretched, tense and fragile, until a sudden sound shattered it. The ship's warning alarm blared, echoing through the corridors. Red lights flashed. The sister recoiled instantly, retreating to the shadows, her body tense with panic. His wife rose to her feet, her eyes blazing. "They found us," she said, her voice low and urgent. The soldier's heart pounded. "Who?" But his wife didn't answer. She turned to her sister, gripping her shoulders firmly. "You must learn quickly. Faster than I hoped. Without this lesson, you will not survive what comes." The younger sister's breath came quick and shallow. She looked from her sister to the human, and for the first time there was no fear in her eyes, only desperation. She needed him now. She needed what only he could teach. The soldier stood, strapping his armor back on with shaking hands. "Then we start the next lesson now," he said. "Because whatever is coming, it won't wait." The alarm continued to scream through the ship, and in that moment, the soldier realized the truth. This was never just about teaching trust. It was about survival. His wife had known it all along. She had married him, not just for herself, but because humanity had something her people needed desperately, and now, time was running out. As the ship shuddered under some unseen force, he glanced at the two alien women by his side. His wife, strong and resolute. Her sister, trembling but willing to learn. And himself, caught in the center of a storm he could no longer escape. The galaxy was closing in, and their strange bond might be the only thing that stood between them and destruction. The alarms shook the walls, their echo like a living heartbeat pulsing through the ship. The soldier strapped the last plate of armor into place, but his eyes never left his wife. She stood calm, too calm, as though the chaos outside was something she had been expecting. "What's out there?" he demanded. Her silence lasted too long. Then finally she said, "They are called the Varen." The name meant nothing to him, but the way the sister recoiled told him enough. The younger one's hands trembled, her eyes wide with a fear so raw it silenced even the alarms. "They are hunters," the wife continued. "They hunt our kind, and any who protect us. That is why we ran. That is why I married you." The words struck hard. He stared at her, struggling to hold back the storm inside. "You used me," he said, his voice low. She met his gaze without flinching. "I chose you. There is a difference. You are human. You carry what my people lost long ago, the ability to trust, to bond, to fight for more than survival. I needed that. My sister needs that. And now, if you want to live, so do you." The soldier wanted to argue, but the ship rocked violently as an impact shook its hull. He staggered, caught himself on the bulkhead, and realized the time for words had passed. They were under attack. The wife moved quickly, leading them toward the lower decks. The younger sister followed, glancing over her shoulder at him with eyes full of unspoken questions. He knew she wanted answers, reassurance, something human to cling to. But he had nothing to give. Not yet. The corridors dimmed as the emergency lights switched on, painting everything in blood-red glow. At the end of the passage, a heavy blast door groaned shut, sealing them in. The soldier pressed his palm against the scanner, but it did not respond. They were trapped. He turned sharply. Weapons. His wife handed him a slender alien blade, the metal humming faintly as it touched his hand. "Energy will fail," she said. "Steel will not." He studied the blade, then nodded. It wasn't his rifle, but it was something. The younger sister clutched nothing but her own fear. She pressed close to the wall, her breath quick and shallow. He moved toward her, crouched to meet her eyes. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You can't freeze. Whatever comes through that door, you run, you move, you survive. Do you understand?" Her lips parted, but no words came. She only nodded. The sound of claws scraping against metal echoed from the far side of the blast door. Slow. Measured. Predatory. The soldier's grip on the blade tightened. The younger sister whimpered softly, but his wife placed a steadying hand on her arm. "They like fear," she whispered. "They can taste it." The door groaned, metal bending under some unseen force. The soldier positioned himself between the sisters and the entrance. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his mind sharpened with a strange clarity. He had been a soldier long before he had been a husband. This part he understood. With a shriek of tearing steel, the blast door ripped open. The first Varen stepped through. It was tall, its body lean and jagged, armored in black chitin that shimmered in the emergency light. Its eyes glowed with predatory hunger, fixed on the three of them as though they were prey trapped in a cage. Behind it, more shadows moved, waiting their turn. The soldier took one slow breath, steadied himself, and raised the blade. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The creature hissed, the sound like knives scraping stone, and lunged. The soldier moved, faster than he thought possible. The blade caught the creature's strike, sparks flying as steel met alien bone. The impact shook his arm, but he held firm, shoving the beast back a step. It snarled, then lunged again. This time, the younger sister cried out, her fear raw and loud. The creature's head snapped toward her, drawn to the sound. The soldier saw its intent and made a choice without hesitation. He threw himself at the monster, driving the blade deep into its side. Black blood spilled across the floor, sizzling like acid. The beast shrieked, thrashing, and collapsed. The others beyond the doorway roared in answer, their fury filling the corridor. The soldier pulled the blade free, his chest heaving. He glanced back at the sisters. His wife's face was steel, but her sister's was pale, trembling, her eyes fixed on him with something new, something close to awe. "You see," he gasped. "That's why trust matters. You don't stand alone. You fight because someone else needs you to." The sister stared at him, her lips trembling. For the first time, she whispered, "Teach me." The words struck deeper than the enemy's claws. There, in the middle of the storm, the lesson had begun. Not in peace, not in safety, but in blood and fire. More Varen were coming. He knew the fight had only just begun. But now, he wasn't the only one willing to fight. The corridor still smelled of acid and smoke from the fallen Varen. The soldier wiped the blade clean against his sleeve, his breath steady though his heart raced like thunder. Behind him, the younger sister repeated the same words she had spoken before, her voice trembling but firm. "Teach me." He looked at her, really looked, and saw something had changed. Her fear was still there, but now it was mixed with determination. It reminded him of the first time he had been thrown into combat as a young man, when courage was nothing more than surviving the first step forward. "There's no time," he said. "There is no choice," she answered. Her sister, the wife, placed a hand on the younger one's shoulder. "She means it. The only way she survives is if she learns now." The soldier's jaw tightened. He didn't want to train someone with death pressing at the door, but he saw the truth in their eyes. The Varen would not stop. They would hunt until nothing remained. And if the younger sister stayed helpless, she would be the first to fall. He knelt, holding out the humming blade. The girl hesitated, her hands shaking, but then she reached for it. Her fingers closed around the hilt, and the weapon's energy pulsed faintly, as if testing her. "First rule," he said. "Don't think of it as a weapon. Think of it as your shield. It keeps you alive." She nodded, gripping tighter. "Second rule. Fear is normal. Let it move you but never let it freeze you. If you can breathe, you can fight." The Varen's screeches echoed from the torn blast door, reminding them all how little time they had. "Third rule," he whispered, leaning close. "You are never alone. If you can't strike, then distract. If you can't kill, then survive. Fighting together means everyone has a chance." The girl's eyes flickered with understanding, and though her hands still shook, she lifted the blade into a ready stance. The soldier gave her a sharp nod. "Stay behind me. When I say move, you move." The wife opened a panel in the wall, pulling free a smaller, jagged blade. She tossed it to the soldier. "You'll need this when your arm grows tired." He caught it, testing its weight. Not perfect, but it would do. The next wave came quickly. Shadows crawled through the doorway, their claws scraping metal, their eyes glowing like burning coals. 3 of them, moving low and fast. The soldier charged first. His blade slashed the nearest beast across the chest, sending black blood spraying. The creature shrieked and fell back, but the other 2 lunged. "Now!" he shouted. The younger sister gasped, but she obeyed. She darted forward, swinging clumsily at one of the creatures. Her strike missed, but it made the monster pause, its attention shifting to her. That pause was enough. The soldier drove his second blade straight through the creature's neck. It collapsed at her feet. She froze, staring at the steaming corpse, her chest heaving. "Good," the soldier barked. "You distracted it. That's how we survive." The third beast lunged at him, but the wife intercepted, her blade flashing with skill. Together, they forced it back until the soldier cut it down. The corridor grew silent again, except for the heavy breathing of the younger sister. She stared at the weapon in her hands, her knuckles white. Her eyes flicked to the soldier. I didn't kill it." "You don't need to," he said firmly. "You gave me the chance. That's fighting together." Something bright flickered in her expression. Pride, fragile but real. But the victory was short. A deep rumble shook the deck under their feet. From the ceiling above, dust rained down. The wife's face darkened. "They're breaching the hull. We don't have long." The soldier led them toward the stairwell, the emergency lights painting every step in crimson glow. His mind raced, forming plans and breaking them in the same breath. Too many enemies. Too few weapons. But quitting wasn't an option. They reached the upper deck, where wide windows showed the endless stars. Beyond the glass, shapes drifted like shadows, Varen ships, sleek and jagged, circling like predators around prey. The younger sister pressed against the glass, her face pale. "There are so many." "Then we move faster," the soldier said. At the center of the deck stood an escape pod, its hatch already half open. But the wife shook her head. "Too small. It cannot hold us all." The soldier swore under his breath. "One pod. 3 lives." Before he could speak, the ship's hull screamed again. More Varen were cutting their way inside. He turned sharply to the younger sister. Lesson 2. Sometimes survival isn't about killing the enemy, it's about buying time. Hold them back while others escape. Her eyes widened. "You mean, sacrifice?" "Not if we're fast," he said. "Not if we fight smart." The girl swallowed hard, gripping the blade. For the first time, she didn't look away. The wife touched her sister's cheek gently, pride in her gaze. "He's right. You have strength you don't yet understand. Trust him. Trust yourself." The younger sister squared her shoulders, her fear still there but buried under something sharper. When the wall split open with another shriek of tearing metal, she was ready. The hull ripped apart with a screech like the tearing of the world itself. Sparks showered the deck as molten metal bent inward, and from the darkness beyond, the Varen poured through like shadows given form. Their claws scraped across the steel floor, their glowing eyes fixed on the 3 figures standing at the center of the deck. The soldier gripped his blade tighter, body already leaning forward. His wife stood at his side, her weapon steady, her jaw clenched. Behind them, the younger sister raised her blade with trembling hands, but for the first time, she did not hide behind the others. She stepped forward, just enough to stand with them. There was no time for speeches. The Varen charged. The soldier met the first one with a brutal strike, splitting it across the chest. His wife spun like fire, her blade cutting a clean line through another. The younger sister swung clumsily, her strike missing, but she ducked the counterattack and stabbed low, catching the beast across its leg. It stumbled, and the soldier finished it with a clean blow. More came. Always more. The soldier fought like a storm, his blades flashing, but he felt the weight of time pressing against him. His muscles burned, and sweat stung his eyes. Every strike was harder, every step slower. "We can't hold them forever," the wife shouted, kicking an enemy back. "Then we don't," the soldier barked. He turned sharply toward the escape pod, its hatch still open. "Get inside." The wife's eyes flared. "Not without you." But before he could answer, the younger sister spoke, her voice shaking but clear. "He's right. We can't all stay. Someone must keep them back." The soldier spun to her, fury in his eyes. "Don't you dare. You've just begun. You survive. Both of you." The wife grabbed his arm, her face pale but resolute. "And what about you? You can't fight forever. The words cut deep, but the soldier shook his head. That's my job. You're my family now. Both of you. I keep you alive, even if it means I don't walk away. The younger sister's breath hitched. For a moment, the fear almost won. But then she looked at him, at her sister, and at the endless swarm of enemies. Slowly, she lifted her blade higher. Then teach me one last thing. How to stand. Not to run. The soldier froze. In her eyes he saw not the helpless girl who had begged for lessons, but a spark of the warrior she could become. More Varen spilled onto the deck, their screeches rising in a deadly chorus. The wife tightened her grip on her weapon. Then we stand together. The soldier's throat ached. He wanted to refuse, to force them into the pod, to lock the hatch and die alone. But when he looked at them, his wife, her sister, he saw the same determination mirrored back. Perhaps that was what it meant to be human. Not dying alone, but fighting together, no matter the odds. He exhaled slowly. Then together. The next wave crashed against them. The soldier roared, driving his blade through two at once. The wife cut down another, her strikes clean and precise. The younger sister screamed, her fear pouring out in a wild slash that grazed an enemy's throat. It staggered, and she finished it with a thrust, her first true kill. Her eyes widened as the creature fell, black blood pooling at her feet. She trembled, but she did not collapse. She stood taller. The soldier's chest swelled with grim pride. Good. Now again. But there were too many. The deck shook as another breach opened, spilling even more Varen inside. The soldier knew the truth. They could not win this fight. He glanced at the pod again, the last chance waiting just steps away. His mind screamed at him to order them inside, to end this. But his heart refused. And then, through the chaos, the ship itself gave a deep, thunderous groan. Warning lights flared, alarms blared, and a computerized voice echoed across the deck. Reactor core unstable. Detonation in 2 minutes. The soldier's eyes widened. The ship was dying. The wife's face went pale. If we don't leave now, we all die. The soldier slashed another enemy down and shouted, "Into the pod! Now!" This time, they didn't argue. The sisters moved together, blades flashing to keep the path open. The soldier fought harder than ever, his body a wall of steel, until finally they reached the hatch. The wife pushed her sister inside first, then turned to her husband. "Come with us." But the soldier shook his head, holding his ground. More enemies rushed toward them. "I'll seal it. You launch. I'll hold them until the end." "No!" the wife cried, her eyes wet with fire. Before the soldier could answer, the younger sister screamed his name. She had thrust her blade deep into a charging Varen, saving his life. The act shocked even her, but she didn't hesitate. She pulled the weapon free, her hands steady now. She looked at him, tears in her eyes but steel in her voice. "We don't leave you. Not now. Not ever." The wife grabbed his hand, gripping it tight. "We go together. Or not at all." The soldier's heart cracked open. He saw the love in her eyes, the bond already forming in her sister's. Family, not bound by blood, but by choice. The reactor's alarms screamed louder. 90 seconds. Snarling, the soldier shoved them both into the pod, then leapt in after them. He slammed the hatch shut, the hiss of seals echoing like final words. As the Varen clawed against the pod's glass, the wife hit the launch controls. The engines roared, and the pod shot away from the doomed ship. Through the viewport, they saw the Varen swarm consumed in a sudden bloom of fire as the reactor detonated. The blast lit the stars like a second sun, wiping the predators from existence. Inside the pod, silence fell. Only their breathing filled the air. The younger sister still gripped her blade, her knuckles white, but her eyes burned with new strength. She whispered, almost to herself. "I stood." The wife wrapped an arm around her, tears falling freely. The soldier pulled them both close, his own chest heavy with relief and pride. They had survived. Together. And for the first time, the soldier realized, he had not only saved them. They had saved him too.